Hello, and welcome to another episode of The End of the Search. And this one I call it When the Thunderstorm Strikes. It's basically a question somebody asked me, and the question is, Nick, it's been happening for the past few days that these fears have appeared, limiting my movements. Even though I can stop, breathe, and acknowledge that I am, it is still there and nothing gets done. Regarding the psychological fear specifically, even if I realize it is just a thought, what happens when I cannot go beyond it? How can I gradually dissolve through this experience the belief that I am the one who feels threatened, through practice in each moment, even if nothing gets done? Okay. The issue here is that, as you can see, or as I can see, the person still have a strong identification with this I, you see? And then everything that seems to be happening, this individual is so identified with its identity that when these seeming movements take place, instead of just simply be, is trying to somehow get an intellectual understanding that I am, like the person says over here, even though I can stop, breathe, and acknowledge that I am. But the question that I would ask is, who is the one that says, even I can stop and breathe and acknowledge what or who I am? Who is the one saying that? You see? The thing about the I am, which I always make sure that hopefully is understood, is that the I am is not something that is going to be achievable for the individual. The I am is the fact that I am. Right now, you are being, aren't you? Aren't you being? This is it. This is beingness. This is the I am that is pointed to. It's not something that I can say I am. It's not about me saying I am. Now, in the I am, it seems as though feelings, sensations that can take the shape or the form of fears, because it's how the mind translates them, they seem to appear in the I am. And when there's a recognition that I am, all those things are seen as passing clouds. See, they're not seen as something that is happening to me. They're just seen as basically part of the movement of life. And I rest in the fact that I am. The person says over here, regarding the psychological fear specifically, even if I realize it's just a thought, what happens when I cannot go beyond it? Go beyond what? You see? Because there's still the I who's realizing. He says, if I realize that it's a thought, yeah, but the fact is that this fear or this feeling, that sensation or whatever the case may be, seems to be there. Now, what to do, technically speaking, what not to do. Now, let me say something clear here because I want to reiterate something. In this world of appearances, sometimes when someone is very overwhelmed by some fear or whatever the case may be, in some cases seeking professional help may be a good choice. However, when we are beginning to get to know who we are, which is the fact that I am, all this resistance can come up to the surface, and all I can do is just be. You see? Until I see that life in the end is just basically experiences, movements, sensations, feelings, but nothing is personal. Here I can see that the person is very identified with the individual and is asking specifically about how can I go beyond that? But there's nothing to go beyond. It just simply be with what is. That's the difference. You see? He says, how can I gradually dissolve through this experience the belief that I am the one who feels threatened? Well, because the one who feels threatened cannot dissolve anything, because that idea of me who feels threatened is the obstacle itself. So, in other words, right now, are you not being right now? This is just pure existence. This is just being. Aren't you? Aren't you not being? Well, let's say that in this beingness, thoughts appear that, that the mind wants to label them overwhelming or fearful. Feelings, sensation, okay, that seems to appear in what I am. But what I am is not affected in any way, shape, or form by any of those movements. Well, we're pointing to that I am, not to the individual who wants to gradually, eventually get to know who I am or try to dissolve anything. Now, in the world of appearances, you will also notice, and this is why these videos are paradoxical, that the recognition that I am remains, while simultaneously, sometimes in some cases, some individuals find themselves seeking for some particular help, but all of that is seen as a happening rather than something that I am doing, you see? Whatever the individual is going to do is what's going to do anyway, according to how life unfolds for him or her. But when life leads you to information like this one, it could be said that it's beginning to recognize itself as life and not as an individual. So what to do or what not to do, well, it depends on the temperament of each individual. But we're pointing to something that is beyond that, and what is beyond that is the fact that I am. Right now, can you say that you are not? See, if you come here with the idea that me individual wants to solve something, then the I am is overlooked. But when that is not overlooked, all that there is the I am, and you notice, or is noticed that life is a movement, constant movement of feelings, sensations, appearances, and all of that, but yet I remain as I am. Do you see? So that's why when the person asks me here, how can I gradually dissolve? No, you don't gradually dissolve because there's nothing to be dissolved. That's the point. The idea of gradually dissolve parts from the premise that there is something that needs to be dissolved. There's nothing that needs to be dissolved. You simply are. The are-ness, the isness, the I am does not need to be dissolved. All we're paying attention is how we're identified with the thoughts. The thought is the one that says, I need to be dissolved. Or the thought says, what can I do in order for gradually dissolved? Or the thought says, okay, I can acknowledge that I am. You see, all of that is thought. But the fact is that I am. See, this is the fact. The fact is I am. This is where this is pointing to. And like I said before, look, these videos are not for everybody because not everyone wants to know the truth of themselves. Most people want to keep holding on to a sense of identity, but maybe in a different context, with a different color, in a different way. Wants to fix the individual, but there's nothing to fix because the fact that you are is perfect, whole, and complete. Right now, the fact that you are is perfect, whole, and complete. Yeah, the body changes, the sensations changes, thoughts changes, feelings changes, but the fact that you are never does. Do you see? And this is why we're pointing to the fact that I am. Not like the person is over here and I acknowledge that I am. No, there's no one acknowledging that I am. I don't acknowledge that I am. I'm just simply pointing to a fact, and the fact is I am. Right now, you are, while it seems as though there's a you watching a video and listening to the information, but all of that seems to be happening in the I am. And in the I am, all sorts of thoughts and feelings and sensations seems to appear, but I am remains. You see? So that's what I always say. If you don't identify, if you don't believe any thoughts, even the thought that says, how do I become or acknowledge the fact that I am, or how can I become conscious of the fact that I am not the one who's been suffering, all of this is just mind stuff that just keep somehow feeding this false sense of self that hopefully in the future is going to have a particular experience or is going to achieve something or accomplish something, call it enlightenment, call it awakening, but There's nothing to achieve, there's nothing to accomplish. The only thing is a recognition, and the recognition is right now. That's why I usually ask people, how do you think you're going to feel when you supposedly awaken or become enlightened, if that is the case? How do you think you're going to feel? Well, that obstacle, that thought, that idea, which is the mind saying, well, when I awaken, what's going to happen? That you're not going to have the thoughts that you're having right now? No, because we don't control the thoughts. They appear. What it could be said, however, is that if you don't believe the thoughts, there's no suffering. If you don't believe in the thoughts, I am a person, I am this. If you don't believe in any mind's interpretation, then all that there is the pure spaciousness of the fact that you are, isn't it? Right now, if you don't believe any thoughts, don't believe any thoughts, nothing. Don't believe any of them. I do this in every video, so if you watch these videos before, you know where I'm going. Right now, if you don't believe any thoughts, even when the thought that says, these fears are appearing and it doesn't let me move, it's leading me my movement. Okay, well, movement is not supposed to happen right now. Okay? Because in the end, if you're supposed to move, you will move. And if you're not supposed to move, you will not move. The problem is the mind is judging. This thought should not be there. I'm very overwhelmed, I'm panicking. No, it's just what happens. That's it, end of story. We don't make a story around that. It's not about breaking through anything. It's just about the fact that I am. Some of us have certain conditioning and others may have other, and that's fine. But the fact that you are is what is underneath prior to any conditioning. The issue here is identity. You see, the individual is parting from an identity. I am this individual who asks, how can I gradually dissolve through the experience and believe that I am the one who feels blah blah blah, or even though I can stop, breathe, and acknowledge that I am, it's still there. You see, he's talking about me. He's talking about me, individual. Look, my story is what he's saying. Look who I am, and this is my story, and how can I go beyond the story? But I'm already telling you that it's not go beyond the story, it's just see the story as a story. Because there's no one trying to go beyond anything. Right now, you're being. So again, if you don't believe the content of the mind, what remains? What remains is not a story. What remains is not something that has to be transcended. What remains is what have always been, and it is and will always be in spite of any stories. And we're pointing to that. That's the you that I'm pointing to, the capital U, or the fact that you are. That's the amness that I'm pointing to. And everything else is just thoughts. Thoughts that appear. Sensations that appear. But they appear in what? They appear in you. They appear in what is. And sometimes you'll feel one way, sometimes you'll feel in a different way. You see, all that is changing, but what is it that doesn't change? What doesn't change is the fact that I am, in which all of those movements seem to appear. See, you're not even the one who's asking the question. You are prior to the one that is asking these questions. And the one that is asking this question is not a one, it's simply what is. And that what is has no issues whatsoever. So this is where, again, we're pointing to the fact that this is the I am. When the person over here says, even when I acknowledge that I am, no. The one who says, even when I acknowledge that I am, if it's an acknowledgement, it has to be personal. It has to be dualistic. I am does not acknowledge I am. I am simply is. And this is non-conceptual. The mind cannot grasp any of these words, nothing. It simply is. Right now you're being. In spite of what may be feelings, in spite of sensations, in spite of anything, you're being. This is what these videos are pointing to. And if someone is not ready for this kind of information, well, probably they might find themselves seeking for some kind of a professional help that may help them break through some specific fears. And there's nothing wrong with that, because in the end, it's all unfolding perfectly. in accordance to life itself, to get to know the fact that you are alive. So maybe sometimes people have to go through those experiences, and that's fine. However, if life has led them or led you or led me to say these things and is letting you to listen to this information, well, once again, it's because maybe there's an openness right now to the possibility that I am, and it has been overlooked. And this is the play, so to speak, that it seems to be unfolding right now. So right now, are you not being? You see? Are you not existing within the context we're speaking here, Are you doing anything in order to be? Are you doing anything in order to exist? I mean, are you causing yourself to exist? No. Existing is. This is the I am. Now, when all these movements comes, those feelings, thoughts, sensations, and everything, you still I am. We're pointing to that. And there's no need to feel guilty or bad about it. It's just basically life as it unfolding. The human experience is a painful experience. It's a suffered experience because it's the experience of separation. Or seeming separation, that's fine. But there's a way of living this experience with a mind that is not of it. That doesn't imply that there's not going to be thunderstorms. There will be thunderstorms, but now we're not bothered by them. Why? Because I am. You see? And once again, I'm not in denial of the situation. We're not denying here. We're not suppressing anything. We're looking right through it. That's what we're pointing to. We're just looking right through it. That's all. And trust that even as you're looking right through it, if you're supposed to do something about it, you see how life moves you to do something about it. So you're not going to lose here. It's impossible. You cannot lose because life is in charge, not you. So therefore, if you need to seek help for that, then you'll find out seeking help. Or maybe life leads you to not do anything about it. I don't know. That's a mystery. However, the fact is, in spite whether you find yourself seeking help in a, let's say, professional, more mundane kind of help, or maybe you find yourself just doing nothing and being, the fact is that you are. That's a fact. That's never going to change. Whether you move to the left or move to the right, you are. Well, we're pointing to the I, to the am, to the you are. That this is what we're pointing to. And now, if you find yourself moving to the right, okay, well, moving to the right is what's supposed to happen. If you find yourself moving to the left, then well, moving to the left is supposed to happen. But you remain as you are. You see the difference? And yes, we're going to have the ups and the downs. We're going to have the ins and the outs. We're going to have all the experiences that encompasses what is being a human being, what is being a separate entity, or seem to be a separate entity, or should I use these words? What is a dualistic experience? The I am is non-dual. The I am is the absence of fear. The I am is the love that you already are. So what these videos are doing is not telling you do this or do that. It's just simply pointing to what has been overlooked. That's it. When that which you are is not overlooked, you're at peace. You're in love. You're happy. You simply are. And well, this is inspiration that came through. I hope it served. And as always, may peace permeate the mind so that love can become evident.